Welcome into Rock Chalk Sports here on ESPN Kansas City and KansasNation.com. I forgot to say what's up, friends. Welcome in to Rock Chalk Sports here on ESPN Kansas City and KansasNation.com. My name is Daniel Courtwright. A little bit of a shortened show for you today. Usually we're on from 4 to 6. Now we're going to be on from 4 to 5 because of the fact that I'm actually going to be out in Kansas City at FanFest covering that for Sports Radio 810 WHB. The Netherlands, their Orange Army is going to be out there starting at around 2 o'clock. They got the Orange Walk going on. I'm going to be out at FanFest all the way until midnight. It's going to be a ton of fun, but trying to cram in a show. So we're going to be a shortened show today. Got about an hour of content for you, so don't you worry. And a lot of great stuff happening over the last 24 hours, really, for Kansas. Going to start off talking a little KU basketball as two former Jayhawks got picked up by NBA teams after the second round of the NBA draft concluded yesterday. Really exciting stuff for Trey White and Melvin Council. We'll figure out where they wind up going. Also coming up in the show, going to be talking about Dan Fitzgerald. He won Baseball America's National Coach of the Year. Really impressive stuff by Dan Fitzgerald and company, and what he's done with his program. Obviously, well deserved, and it's catching the eyes of national media. Baseball America is one of the top tier outlets in terms of college baseball, and they announced that he is the National Coach of the Year. So that's really fun stuff. Also going to be kind of touching on the rest of the NBA draft, where some of the other Big 12 guys wound up going, maybe some surprises, maybe some things where I think there are some good fits or not. And then I'm going to do a cup check as well. Going to be talking a little World Cup. Watch that Mexico game yesterday against Czechia. That was so much fun to watch. It was 0-0 with, I think it was like 57 minutes, and then wound up scoring a couple more. So really exciting stuff for Mexico yesterday out in Mexico City. That was a blast to watch. The United States, they take on they're playing tonight. So that's going to be really fun. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. That's going on at 9 o'clock tonight. They're taking on Turkey. Then after that, like I said, only an hour of content for today. So I'm going to be doing my KU football positional group breakdown. Try to get Tyshawn Taylor in the show today, but some scheduling things came up, so hopefully we can get Tyshawn in either tomorrow or next week, somewhere around there. I want to talk to him, bend his ear a little bit about what's going on with Darren Peterson, some of the other guys, because he's been kind of in touch. He has his finger on the pulse with kind of what's going on inside of KU basketball as well. Plus, I want to talk to him about whether or not my old man rec team is the worst basketball team he's ever played on. I would imagine it is, but I want to know his thoughts on it and see if he'll be honest with me, because I'm sure that's the worst basketball team he's ever played on. First things first, I want to talk about, like I said, a couple of KU guys get picked up, but I'll tell you about KansasNation.com first. KansasNation.com, the place to go to find all of the latest Jayhawk news. Kansas Nation on our social media pages as well, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at The Kansas Nation. Kansas Nation on Facebook. Be sure to check those out. And KansasNation.com, all of our shows are going to be on there. We got Between Two Fountains with Greg Gurley and Mick Schaefer, the Time Out with Tyshawn Taylor podcast, Haney and the Hawks, where Brian Haney brings on Jayhawks of old, and they talk about the glory days. That was always a ton of fun. And you have our show, me and Sean Kellerman. Sean Kellerman is not here. He is actually up in Canada right now, fishing with his dad. So he'll be back on Monday, but like I said, I'll take you through the rest of this week with all things to keep you up to breast on all things Kansas related. Hey, I want to talk about this. So like I said, a couple of Jayhawks picked up late last night. So one of them late last night, it was around 1 a.m. I was asleep. I stayed up until about midnight, just continuing to refresh my Twitter feed, trying to figure out where these guys are going to go. Trey White eventually gets picked up around 1 a.m. yesterday to the Miami Heat. And then Melvin Council early this morning got picked up by the New Orleans Pelicans. This is really cool stuff. Again, these were the two kind of obvious ones that you saw from this past year that you go, okay, these guys could potentially get some run, get some action, and hopefully get picked up by a team. And then they did, and it's really, really exciting. Trey White, like I said, he's sort of what you want out of a pro, out of a college guy to kind of make it to the next level, right? I mean, when you look at Trey White, he has all the measurables, right? He's 6'8", 6'7", kind of around there. He plays the guard position, so he's really kind of a tall wing. I mean, when you look at him, you can kind of see a little bit of, and I'm not making a one-of-one comparison, but just in terms of the body style, what he has, it's kind of like an Andrew Wiggins, maybe a smaller A.J. DeBonsa kind of where, he's a tall guy but can stretch it, really kind of flourishes in that 3 spot. He can play the forward if he wants to, but more of just kind of a big wing, which is, again, when you look at what the NBA needs, they need big wings. And that's exactly what Trey White is. If you look at what he did last year for Kansas, shot 45% from the field, 40.3% from the three-point line. That was really probably the biggest surprise that we saw out of anybody, was we did not expect Trey White to be that good of a three-point shooter. We knew he was going to be fine, right? But he only shot less than 33% the year prior at Illinois, and then winds up shooting over 40% for the Jayhawks. 6.7 rebounds per game, 1.8 assists per game. That was his career high as well. So all really career highs for Trey White last year for the Jayhawks, as he was kind of that bright spot for the Hawks last year. Really impressive stuff. And again, you look at the body style and the play style that Trey White has. I mean, he's good when the ball's on the ground. He's nice at pull-ups. He's nice at step backs. He can crash the boards if you need him to, right? He was everything you kind of wanted out of a tall guard, and I think that's going to play in the NBA. Like I said, he can kind of play that small forward position, if you will, where he's going to be that 3/4. So we'll certainly see. He signed to play in the Summer League for the Miami Heat. This is really exciting because of the fact that Miami Heat, they got rid of everybody, right? I mean, you look at what they have right now. They have a good front court. And I think if Trey White wants to potentially make this roster, because I believe he's signed, and again, I'm kind of scrounging for details on this. From what I know, currently as of right now, he has signed to play in the Summer League, but not necessarily signed to be on the roster right now. So that means essentially he'll be on the Summer League team. He'll go and play for the G League most likely, and then he has to work his way into one of those two-way contracts to potentially get onto that Miami Heat roster. But the Miami Heat, for what it's worth, like I said, they got rid of a lot of guys. They have Giannis because they made a massive trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo a couple days ago, right before the NBA draft went. Miami Heat traded for him. They traded a bunch of picks. They traded Tyler Hero away, Khalil Ware away, Jaime Jaquez away, Kasparas Jackson-Eunice away. So they really don't have a lot of guys surrounding them. They have Norman Powell, who's okay, right? And Norman Powell, I think, is probably their best guard that they have, at least as of right now. Davion Mitchell as well. He's kind of a nice guard. But again, those are two smaller kind of individuals. They have Andrew Wiggins, who, again, is listed as a forward, but Andrew Wiggins can stretch it, right? We know this, obviously, and he's going to be teaming up with a former Jayhawk in Trey White and Andrew Wiggins. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Drew Smith is on that roster from Mizzou. Again, not a very tall guard. He's only 6'2". Pele Larson, he's 6'5", plays that guard spot. So as of right now, I mean, Trey White's going to be the tallest guard that they really have on this roster. And again, when you look at what the NBA prototypical style and body type player is, it's Trey White, right? And I think that there's some holes in his game for sure, right? He needs to be a better attacker. Needs to be more of a consistent shooter, needs to have a little bit better court vision if he wants to make it to that next level. But I think Trey White has continued to improve every single year that he's been in college, especially because of the fact that he's bounced around so much. Started at USC, then Louisville, then Illinois, and now eventually, ending his career at Kansas. All career highs for him at the University of Kansas, and really was kind of an impact guy. So yeah, I don't think that's crazy to think that he's not. That he's going to make this roster. I think if he really shows out in the Summer League and, just kind of continues the progression that he's made over the last 4 or 5 years or whatever he's made in college, again, this is kind of a perfect landing spot if you're Trey White, because of the fact that you have the size, you have the capability, and they don't have a lot of guard play right now. If he wants to play the forward, he can do that, right? He's listed at 6'7". I know some people say he's 6'8". I've seen other places say he's 6'9". He's not 6'9". He's really a 6'7", just a tall wing, right? So I think that there is a legitimate shot for him to make this NBA roster. Now, when you look at the NBA, it's a rarity to find those diamonds in the rough like that, right? It's so complicated because in the NFL, the talent pool is so large and there's so many different positions that it kind of gets, oversaturated, where you go through 7 rounds where all of a sudden you can get a Tom Brady in the 6th round, or you can get a UDFA who winds up being a really nice player, right? The talent evaluation in the NBA is by far and away the best talent evaluation, I think, in any major professional sport, because of the fact that you rarely ever hear about, like, even second rounders getting to the level that, of an all-star MVP, right? Nikola Jokic is the prime exception to that. You also have Jalen Brunson, right? But in terms of second rounders, there's not typically they understand what it is. The best UDFA, I want to say, as of right now, in maybe NBA history, is probably like Fred VanVleet, who's good. He's really good. He's a solid player. And I like Fred VanVleet a lot. Wichita State, really nice player. But at the same time, right, the talent evaluation is great. But there's always the chance for you to prove everybody wrong. And I think that's what Trey White is going to be able to do, especially heading into this Miami Heat roster, who is really thin at the guard spot. Giannis Antetokounmpo is taking up a lot of cap space there, as well as Bam Adebayo. They have a nice front court. Nobody surrounding them, right? Probably going to have Andrew Wiggins as that 3, but Trey White has the ability to be able to take it to that next level and, make a case for him being on the bench and potentially being one of those rotational pieces that you see for the Miami Heat. So this is really fun, and I love the fact that he got picked up there. And then I wanted to talk about another guy who got picked up from Kansas, Melvin Council Jr., the absolute dog. He got picked up by the New Orleans Pelicans. Now, I like this fit as well. Now, there's a lot of really good guard play on the New Orleans Pelicans, right? They have Jordan Poole, DeJounte Murray, right? Jeremiah Fears is on that team. So they have some nice guard play as well. But Melvin Council Jr., to me, is the prototypical, prove everybody wrong guy, right? Nobody wanted him out of high school. He went JUCO, then he went to Wagner, then he went to St. Bonaventure, and just continued to ball out enough to where he makes it to a blue blood in Kansas and becomes a fan favorite, becomes that energy guy, and becomes, a stalwart and a fixture on this Kansas team from last year, right? I mean, you look at what Melvin was able to do. And granted, I think Melvin Council probably is the least judged maybe ever Kansas player in terms of field goal percentage and 3-point percentage, because of the fact that he shot but he shot under 40% from the field last year, 39.2%. He also shot 30.8% from the 3-point line, and it wasn't even until the NC State games when he started hitting those threes. If you remember, before that, he was dreadful from 3. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he hits 8 threes or whatever it was. In the NC State games, pretty much single-handedly wins Kansas that game, right? But again, the energy that he brings, just the stamina alone, the conditioning that he brings, I mean, he's going to make it a running game. You know what I mean? That's exactly what Melvin Council is able to do. And, he's, just for lack of a better term, just a dog, right? I mean, he 5 rebounds a game at 6'4". That's really impressive too. 5.1 assists per game. He was really that facilitator guy. You had Darren for a lot of it, but again, you had to have Melvin kind of be the guy whenever Darren wasn't there to kind of move the ball around and make those plays. Now, again, are there some holes in Melvin Council's game? Absolutely they are, right? A lot of times he would drive without a plan. He was a little reckless with the ball sometimes, wanted to do a little bit more ISO stuff than I think maybe Bill Self wanted him to, but he was still a really nice player. Only averaged 12.7 points per game last year. But again, I think you saw the upside in terms of what Melvin Council brought to the table for Kansas, and he can certainly bring that to the next level, right? I mean, you look at the New Orleans Pelicans, like I said, they have Zion, who is, by far and away their best player, was the number 1 overall pick a few years ago. DeJounte Murray, like I said, is a really nice player. Jordan Poole's a really nice player. They have some good guard play over there in New Orleans, right? They have Sadiq Bey. They have, who else is there? Micah Peavy from Georgetown, who was a nice player back in the day. And he's also teaming up with another former Jayhawk and Hunter Dickinson, right? Hunter Dickinson, he's on that kind of two-way contract right now. He gets pulled up every now and then to go and play for the New Orleans Pelicans and kind of get sent back down. I think it's the Birmingham. Are they the Birmingham Pelicans? I still think their name is the Pelicans, kind of like the Wolves, the Iowa Wolves or whatever it may be. South Bay Lakers, like some of them share the same names. But Hunter Dickinson has been kind of on that two-way, which has been nice to see. And I think Melvin Council, again, he's the prototypical guy where you look at him and say, if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Melvin Council. And I think the same with Trey White, too, right? Both of these guys, to me, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a Kansas fan. Trey White and Melvin Council legitimately have shots to make these rosters, right? Trey White signed a summer league deal. The Melvin Council contract is still TBD. I know they're still continuing to work it out, but probably going to play in the summer league, right? Got picked up relatively late. But both of these guys, I think you can see, have that kind of chip on their shoulder, and they're going to go out there and say, hey, I'm going to prove all of you guys wrong, that I should have been picked up, and both of these guys are the prototypical, like, hey, we're going to go out there and show you that you shouldn't have passed on us. And the New Orleans Pelicans, they got a guy. They got an absolute dude in Melvin Council who is going to work his butt off day in and day out and, try to make this roster. He's not going to phone it in, right? He's going to make everything a running game. He's going to work his butt off, try his hardest. I mean, you look at what he did at the Portsmouth Invitational. He won the MVP, right? He averaged over 19 points a game, shot over, I think it was 48% or something along those lines at the Portsmouth Invitational, right? Melvin Council has that chip on his shoulder trying to prove people wrong. Trey White has that chip on his shoulder trying to prove people wrong. And both of them have the measurables. Both of them have the size to be able to make it to that next level. So congratulations to them. Again, this is a really exciting thing. And they're teaming up with two former Jayhawks, right? Andrew Wiggins plays for the Miami Heat. Miami Heat is really thin right now in terms of guard play, so that opens up a door for Trey White. And then Melvin Council, like I said, he's going to be the hardest worker in the gym. No matter what gym it is, he is going to be the hardest worker there. So that, to me, leaves the door open for Melvin Council to be that guy to take advantage of it and work his way into a two-way or work his way into making the roster for the New Orleans Pelicans. So who knows, right? And, these guys can get traded around or whatever, but these guys' basketball careers are not over. Trey White is a pro, a true pro, because of what we saw from him last year, because of the size that he has, because of his ability on the ball, with the ball in his hands. He's a true pro. Melvin Council is the hardest worker in every single gym, like I said. So both of these guys are going to have a very nice opportunity, and I think both of these guys understand the opportunity given to them, and that's, hey, I'm here to prove everybody wrong, to prove to people that I can do it. I can make an NBA roster, right? It depends on what happens in the summer. I think both of them are going to be, really nice players in the summer league with the Miami Heat, with the New Orleans Pelicans, and potentially work their way up. So it is, that's obviously just fantastic to see. Wanted to talk about the last NBA draft second round, just because of the fact that there were a lot of Big 12 guys also taken too. So when you look at the second round and what it was, Richie Saunders actually goes 32 to the Memphis Grizzlies, which I like because, he's coming off of an injury, but still was a really nice player. I mean, that guy just cannot miss whatsoever. Baba Miller got picked up. Baba Miller was a really nice player for Cincinnati, got picked up by the LA Clippers. You also had Emmanuel Sharp get picked up by the Sacramento Kings. Again, that to me, he feels like a pro guy, a guy who's going to be able to make this roster and potentially be, an impact guy for either the Sacramento Kings or whoever it may be. Jaden Bradley got picked up by the Toronto Raptors, the Big 12 Player of the Year. I was maybe shocked is a little, I'm not going to say shocked, but it was a little surprising to me that he fell all the way to 50. To me, he felt like late first, early second, but he fell to 50, so it was a 20th pick in the second round. of the NBA draft. So, again, I think Jaden Bradley has some really nice pieces to him as well. So, those are some of the Big 12 guys who got picked up, too. Henry Vasar, by the way, for what it's worth, did get picked up by the LA Clippers. And there's a big story around that saying that if Henry Vasar would have came back to college, he was going to get around $5.5 million, and he got picked up 52nd overall pick, 22nd pick in the second round. Probably not going to be getting that much. Maybe he will be, right? We don't know for sure what his rookie contract is going to look like. But it is a little surprising, I think, that he fell, just because I do think Henry Vasar is going to be a nice player for the future for the LA Clippers and in the NBA. But again, this just goes back to the thing of there's so much money in college right now that it actually makes more sense to kind of make your money while you're in college, increase the talent pool in college basketball, which again I love because I love college basketball. I like college basketball way more than I like the NBA. I understand he wants to be professional about this, but at the same time, it's like you're giving up a lot of money to come back just to kind of gamble on yourself. I like the fact that he's gambling on himself, and he did get picked up in the second round. So congratulations to Henry Vasar as well, and congratulations to Trey White and Melvin Council for getting picked up as UDFAs. Again, still looking into what the contracts kind of say. Melvin Council is TBD, and I think Trey White has signed to play in the Summer League, and hopefully he's going to be able to work his way into that roster for the Miami Heat. So, yeah, that's kind of recapping the entirety of the NBA draft. The Big 12, obviously, a lot of talent in the Big 12, a lot of talent being picked up from the Big 12 as well, just further solidifying that the Big 12 is the best basketball conference in America. Hey, after this, going to be talking a little Dan Fitzgerald with you as he was named Baseball America's National Coach of the Year. After this on Rock Chalk Sports, ESPN Kansas City and KansasNation.com. Welcome back into Rock Chalk Sports here on ESPN Kansas City and KansasNation.com. Daniel Courtwright here. Hey, wanted to talk a little KU baseball with you, wrapping up this season, putting a bow on it, if you will. That's a phrase that I like to say that people make fun of me for. But I want to talk about Dan Fitzgerald. First, I got to tell you about Crown Automotive. Crown Automotive is the place to go. It's over in my neck of the woods down on South Iowa Street. Be sure to check them out if you're in the market for a new or used car. Be sure to check them out. They have a whole line of new Toyotas and Volkswagens, the best cars, best bang for your buck in terms of gas mileage, in terms of, longevity. These cars are incredible. Tiguan's, Taosas, Jettas, Camrys, Corollas, RAV4s, Tundras, Tacomas, you name it. They've got it. And if that's not your jam, they have a whole line of used cars as well from a number of different brands. I urge you to check out Crown Automotive. They're the most trusted car dealership here in Lawrence, run by Miles Schneider, the Lawrence Citizen of the Year. They're not going to try to sell you on some lemon of a car. They're going to get you in the car that fits your lifestyle at an affordable cost, too. Very friendly sales staff. So be sure to check them out, crownautomotive.com or crownmotorsvw.com. Hey, wanted to talk about Dan Fitzgerald. He is Dan Fitzgerald, the 2026 Baseball America College Coach of the Year. Nice job. Oh, do you have an applause button? Let's go. We have an applause button? How have I not known about this? Congratulations to Dan Fitzgerald. This is amazing. Man, I'm going to, by the way, remind me of that. I'm going to utilize that a lot. I did not know we had an applause button. That's so much fun. Congratulations to Dan Fitzgerald, 2026 Baseball America College Coach of the Year. Really exciting stuff and certainly well-deserved, right? I mean, you look at everything that he's done and kind of what he was able to do whenever he took over this Kansas baseball program, right? Rich Price, bless his heart, did a great job, but, Kansas baseball was not good for a long, long time. So Travis Goff decides, hey, I'm going to put an investment into this Kansas baseball program. I'm going to get this scrappy guy from Dallas Baptist. He's going to come in and he's going to be our guy. And he's going to be the one who evaluates the talent and makes sure that, you get the right guys in here to make Kansas baseball, I'm not even going to say good again, just good, because they've never really been good. They made it to the College World Series back in 1993. That was an incredible run. They won the Big 12 tournament back in 2006, but historically, Kansas hasn't had a good baseball program. And Dan Fitzgerald comes in year 4. He wins 3 separate titles, if you will, right? Big 12 regular season champion, Big 12 tournament champion, and the Lawrence regional champion, enough to host the first ever Lawrence Super Regional against the what would be national champion Oklahoma. And again, you just kind of ran into a hurricane there because they were just so good and they got hot at the perfect time, and they were coming off of a massive series win over, not series win, but a regional win over Georgia Tech. They won 2 over Georgia Tech. So you can't look at that. But again, the sustained success, and not only the sustained success, but the steps leading up to it, right? He took over year 1, and it was all right. They narrowly missed the national tournament. Year 2, he got better. You could see the bones start to kind of form around it, right, with Collier Cranford and Cody Shojinaga, right? You had a lot of guys that he was able to bring in and kind of form around him. And then year 3 is really where the meteoric rise kind of came, right? Where Kansas, they were really, really good last year, right? All of a sudden they make it to a regional. They go to Baum-Walker Stadium in Arkansas. They wind up losing to Creighton and North Dakota State. And you lose a lot of guys, right? You lose a number of different key pieces for you, but that was because of the MLB draft, because your talent evaluation was so good that you got pros into your program. And then you look at what he did this year, where he did the exact same thing, where he scoured all the JUCO ranks and found these diamonds in the rough, right? Where he got Tyson LeBlanc, who wasn't supposed to be the all-time leader in terms of season home runs for Kansas, right? He was supposed to be kind of a speed guy. You got just a ton of really talented players, right? Jordan Bach, right? Dylan Schlotterbeck. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Cade Baldridge, right? The list goes on for all of these. Bodie Ray, another great example of a guy who came into this Kansas program and just absolutely shined. He's able to find these guys, and I think what he does the best, and this is what everybody has kind of said, and I continue to ask this question just to kind of get it out there. I know the answer to it, but I asked the question to a lot of our guests that how does he continue to do this? How does he continue to get all these great players to wind up coming to Kansas, and how does he evaluate this talent where he's looking where other people aren't? And essentially it's like what I have heard is he's so good, not just the talent evaluation, but the personality evaluation, the character evaluation, where he recruits based on character. He gets guys who he knows are going to be a good fit in this program culturally, character-wise, personality-wise. All these guys are friends, right? He's not going for, the best of the best in the transfer portal or whatever it may be. He's looking at these JUCO ranks saying, hey, who's going to be the guy who comes in and, is a positive vibes guy, a good locker room guy, a hell of a ball player, and is going to make an impact right away. And that's how he does it. That's how he recruits. And it's continued to work. I'm just hoping that nobody else catches on so that these guys continue to come to Kansas, right? And you're starting to see that. We're seeing a number of different guys already deciding to come to Kansas, this early, right? I mean, the transfer portal has opened, and so you've had a couple of guys who have, either committed to Kansas or have been linked to Kansas or whatever it may be. And you're going to lose some guys, right? Tyson LeBlanc, probably going to go in the first couple of rounds, right? Because he's that good of a player, and he's a power hitter that we didn't know was going to be a power hitter. He's also really fast and has a bunch of stolen bases, and he's a really nice shortstop as well. Good on the defensive end, and KU baseball on the defensive end of the ball was I feel like that's not talked about enough, where I think that they were a really sound infield. We talk about that, the middle two with Tyson LeBlanc and Cade Baldridge. Both of those guys had such tremendous chemistry, right? You talk about Josh Dykoff over there at first, right? You talk about Dylan Schlotterbach at third, right? Augusto Mungarieta was such a great catcher for Kansas who rarely ever made mistakes behind the plate. The defensive aspect, I think, isn't talked about enough. And Dan Fitzgerald has done such a tremendous job. And you just cannot say enough about him and about the job that he's done to bring Kansas baseball to national prominence. And it's continuing to build, right? You look at what he did this year. 45-18, that ties the school record for wins. 22 conference games, 20 road games, 24 games away from Lawrence. It was the only Division I team in the country to finish this year with at least 45 wins, 20 conference wins, and 20 road wins. That is so impressive because you're not just doing it at Hoagland, which is the best atmosphere in college baseball, but you're doing it on the road as well. And Kansas was able to catch some breaks too, but you can't just chalk that all up to luck. You can chalk that up to good, sound coaching and not allowing your guys to put their heads down, right? They had a ton of come-from-behind wins. It was upwards of 25 come-from-behind wins. That's unbelievable. That's unheard of, right? All of these guys, they would get down. There's a lot of teams out there who just start to hang their heads and say, all right, well, the game's over. Not Kansas. Not Kansas. They're always in a game. They're always in these games that they get down in, and they manage to get back into these games and wind up and find a way to win. So, again, really impressive. Like I said, he essentially won 3 titles this year with the Big 12 regular season title, with the Big 12 tournament title, and with the Lawrence regional title. That was the first time, by the way, that KU won a regular season conference championship since 1949. It was in the Big 8, only 4th in program history. Won its second Big 12 title for the first time, Big 12 tournament title for the first time since 2006. Consecutive seasons in the NCAA tournament for only the second time in school history. Back-to-back seasons with at least 43 wins for the first time ever, and back-to-back seasons with at least 20 conference wins for the first time ever. Dan Fitzgerald is starting to gain this national recognition, and it is certainly well-deserved, and he has done such a tremendous job in terms of, taking over for the University of Kansas. So, a credit to him. Congratulations to him. Certainly well-deserved. I hope he stays in Kansas forever, and I hope that we give him what he deserves, which is, all of the resources in the world and all of the NIL money and an indoor stadium and a newly renovated Hoagland, right? I understand Kansas can't do all this because a little strapped for cash right now because of the David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium, which is, also in and of itself a tremendous thing that Kansas has been able to do. But this is another testament, and I feel like we're beating a dead horse whenever we say this, to Travis Goff. Travis Goff has time and time and time again just hit the ball out of the park, no pun intended, with his coaching hires, right? You look at Lindsey Cool, you look at Dan Fitzgerald, you look at Lance Leipold, you look at Nate Lee, right? All of these coaches. I mean, he brought in Jacques Vaughn as an assistant coach for KU basketball, right? All of these head coaching hires have been a testament to what Travis Goff has been able to do and bring these people in and say, hey, you know what? We're legit. We're here. We're not just a basketball school. We're an everything school. And it's showing investment into all of these other sports. It's showing investment in football, where you're building a brand new stadium. You're showing investment into baseball, where you're making all of these renovations kind of on the fly as it's happening, where you didn't even know you were going to be hosting a super regional. You didn't know if you're going to be hosting an actual regional, right? Up until essentially a couple of days beforehand, whenever you wound up winning the Big 12 regular season title and then obviously the Big 12 tournament title. You didn't know if you're going to be hosting, right? So again, such a tremendous job by Travis Goff bringing in this talent, evaluating the talent in terms of the head coaching abilities, and he's just hit it out of the park every single time. So, and it obviously has paid off because Dan Fitzgerald, Baseball America's 2026 College National Coach of the Year. Hey, after this, going to be doing a cup check as well as talking a little KU football, doing a football positional group breakdown that's coming up. After this, going to be talking about the defensive backs, corners, and safeties. A lot of really talented players in there as well. It's coming up after this. Rock Chalk Sports, ESPN Kansas City, and KansasNation.com. Welcome back into the last segment of Rock Chalk Sports here on ESPN Kansas City and KansasNation.com. Again, shortened show for today because right after this, we are pre-recording the show, by the way. This is early in the morning, and I am going to be turning and burning and heading up to Kansas City for the Fan Fest. Going to be covering that. Netherlands is going to have a big presence there. And then 9 o'clock tonight, big one, U.S. takes on Turkey, or Turkey, as they want to be called. Turkey? That's what they want to be called. That's what everybody's. Fine. But yeah, U.S. takes on Turkey tonight at 9 o'clock. It's going to be a late one, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm going to be up there covering that for Sports Radio 810 WHB. I'm going to be up there until like midnight tonight. So that's why we're pre-recording the show today. That's why there's only going to be an hour-long show today. So appreciate you sticking with us. Be sure to check in tomorrow because we got a fun show for you. Shreyas Laddha is going to be here, going to be talking to him about, all things NBA draft, what he saw, what he heard from everybody, because he was talking to a lot of different guys, talking to Darius Acuff and LeBaron Philon and a number of different people, about some KU stuff, and obviously was very, very close with Darren Peterson throughout the last few days, which has been really fun to see. So going to talk to Shreyas tomorrow about that. Hopefully his flight has come in to Kansas City, and if not, we're going to try to get him on Zoom. So we'll see about that. Also, sports stock market tomorrow, so that's going to be a lot of fun as well, and just kind of a weekend preview for tomorrow. But first, I wanted to talk about KU football positional group breakdowns. Actually, I'm going to do a cup check before that, just kind of break down what happened yesterday, and then kind of give you a preview of what's going on today. First, got to tell you about Central Bank. With Jayhawk checking from Central Bank, Jayhawk fans can carry their pride wherever they go with the official Jayhawk debit card. It's a simple way to show school spirit every day. Central Bank is proud to support the traditions and communities that bring people together. As a proud community banking partner of the University of Kansas, Central Bank is committed to serving Jayhawk fans with banking options designed for real life, on campus, at work, and everywhere in between. You can learn more about Jayhawk Checking and the exclusive Jayhawk debit card at jayhawkchecking.com. That's jayhawkchecking.com. Central Bank, the proud community banking partner of the University of Kansas, member FDIC. Time for a cup check. World Cup happened yesterday. Elijah's favorite team in the world, Bosnia and Herzegovina, actually wound up beating Qatar 3-1 yesterday. I know you still have your face paint on. Your face is painted half yellow and half blue. So I like the fact that you're still, still cheering for him. You're still riding that high from yesterday. I know it. Switzerland beat Canada yesterday 2-1. Canada, they're kind of in a weird spot right now. I don't know if they're going to be able to make it to the knockouts. It's going to be interesting to see. They still got another game going on. Morocco beat Haiti 4-2. Brazil, they seem like a wagon right now. They, to me, seem like the one team that's kind of been consistent enough to potentially win the World Cup. They beat Scotland yesterday 3-0. Mexico beat Czechia 3-0. It was 0-0 heading into about 60 minutes, and then you had a breakaway. They scored one, and then another one kind of bouncing around, and then they wind up winning 3-1. That was a lot of fun to watch too. It was in Mexico City, so shout out. I was watching that game yesterday, and the crowd roars after each goal was like earth-shaking. It was so much fun. It was awesome to see. And South Africa wound up being South Korea yesterday, 1-0. Looking at today's matchups, you got some interesting ones. So you have Curacao taking on Ivory Coast today. Curacao, again, they're scrappy, right? They wound up tying with, I think, Ecuador in Kansas City in the last game. So they're a scrappy, fun team to kind of root for. They're taking on the Ivory Coast. Ecuador is taking on Germany. Germany's a wagon, right? They're always going to be a wagon every single year. That one's going to be going on at MetLife Stadium, New Jersey, New York Stadium, over in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Japan takes on Sweden. That's going to be an interesting game. Japan is a nice team, but Sweden, I think that they're going to be, primed. They don't have Zlatan anymore, obviously, because he's been doing TV stuff. But Sweden's still a nice team. And then going on today at 6 o'clock, you have the Netherlands taking on Tunisia. That's going to be at Arrowhead Stadium, Kansas City Stadium. I'm going to be out there covering that tonight. The Orange Army is going to be out for Fan Fest. It's going to be absolutely electric. Cannot wait for that game. The whole one word. Electric. I got it. Paraguay takes on Australia today. That'll be interesting to see. I think Australia is, again, just a faster team than Paraguay. They have some nice players as well. And then the United States, they take on Turkey today. Turkey, I think they've already been eliminated in Kansas. I keep on saying, whenever I talk about the United States, I keep wanting to say Kansas. But the United States, they can kind of coast right now. There's a couple of different ways you can look at this. Number one is you gain momentum, because that's how soccer is, I think. I think when you have the momentum your way, the pendulum has swung all the way your way and you're just blowing everybody out, you want to keep your foot on the gas, right? But there's a couple of different ways you can look at this. Number one is that you can keep the momentum and you can try to beat Turkey like 4-1 or 4-0 and try to blow them out. Or you could, in theory, like, play your starters for the first half and then kind of rest them for the second half and get ready for the knockout rounds, because the U.S. is already in the knockout rounds right now for the first time since 2014. This is a big, big matchup in terms of like what they're going to be able to do. And this is, obviously going to the knockout rounds is big for them. Do they want to keep their players rested, or do they want to keep their foot on the gas? We'll certainly see. Friday coming up, by the way, you got Norway, France, Senegal, Iraq, Cape Verde versus Saudi Arabia, Uruguay and Spain. That's going to be a fun game. Egypt and Iran, and then New Zealand and Belgium. Also, that one's going to be a lot of fun as well. So if you're going out there today for the Netherlands-Tunisia game, have fun. It's going to be a blast. I'm actually going out to the Algeria-Austria game on Saturday at Arrowhead, and I absolutely can't wait. I'll wear it, maybe, well, I don't want to wear it tomorrow because then I'll have to wash it. But my dad actually got me a Rock Chalk Algeria shirt. Actually, hold on. I have an Algeria flag right here. So I'm going to take this with me, and I'm going to take that scarf with me too. I'm going to be all about Algeria on Saturday. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So that was a cup check for you for today. Hey, wanted to break down the KU football positional group of defensive backs. This is continuing our series of KU football positional group breakdowns. Talking about the DBs, this is a second, defensive position that we're going to be breaking down. Yesterday I did the linebackers. A lot of exciting things going on in that linebacker room, with Trey Lathan coming back, kind of being the anchor of them. And then, when you look at all of the transfers who came in for the linebackers with Jabril Alameen, Jerron Willis, right, Quincy Davis, Bam Crouch, all those guys are going to be really nice. And then you have a couple of nice young guys as well with Josh Galbraith, who I think could potentially be an impact guy right away, right? I can see him sliding in and getting some play time early if you're Josh Galbraith. So that'll be a lot of fun. But we're going to talk about the DBs right now. Break this into two different segments. I want to talk about the corners. I'll talk about the returners first. So you do have two returning, quote-unquote, starting corners, because there are some times where, one of them was out, or one of them was either playing in the nickel spot, and you had another guy playing at the corner position, right? So there was some movement there last year, but the two consistent players that you had from last year are Austin Alexander and Jalen Todd, and both of them were really nice. Jalen Todd is, I think, probably the best one that you're going to have for this year. He had 30 solo tackles last year, 44 total tackles. He had 2 sacks last year and a fumble recovery. So I think Austin Alexander, in terms of what we're going to see from him this year, is going to improve on that outside, and I want him playing on the outside. And we've talked about this with Henry Greenstein, talked about this with Sean, about how whenever they moved Jalen Todd to that nickel corner, then you had a big gap in terms of who was guarding the outside, right? So you want Jalen Todd on the outside, and then you brought in some different transfers to kind of slot into that nickel safety or that nickel corner spot, if you will. And according to Phil Steele, he has Keyshawn Cummings-Coleman. I'll talk a little bit more about him coming up, but he's listed as a safety and could potentially play that nickel corner, which I do really like out of Keyshawn Cummings-Coleman. But Austin Alexander is going to be nice on the outside as well. He's going to be a sophomore this year. So, again, nice young talent. Jalen Todd, for what it's worth, he's going to be a junior this year. But all these guys, by the way, they're going to be getting another year of eligibility because of the new 5-year rule, right? So this is really exciting for them. Austin Alexander last year had 46 total tackles, 34 solo tackles, also a fumble recovery, 2 passes deflected, and he was kind of that lockdown guy, a really nice corner on the outside for this Kansas squad. You also have a couple of guys coming back for corner as well who got meaningful playing time last year, and Saeed Gibbs as well as Jaleel Hurley. Now, Saeed Gibbs, he's an interesting player because you can kind of plug and play him anywhere, right? When I look at Saeed Gibbs, I look at him more as kind of a rover position, not in the true sense of a rover, but I look at him as a safety. He's listed as a corner, Saeed Gibbs is. I look at him more of a nickel kind of guy, right? Where Saeed Gibbs could potentially play that free safety. He could potentially play that nickel. He could slot in as the outside corner because he's talented enough to do that. Obviously, we got him over from Georgia Tech last year and was a really nice player, Saeed Gibbs was. So I like this a lot. But again, if you're listing him as a corner, potentially that could be that nickel corner spot and kind of plug and play him anywhere. I'm surprised he's listed as a CB as opposed to a DB because sometimes they'll do that if they have a guy who's sort of androgynous. Is that the right word that I'm looking for? Of a guy who can kind of play anywhere in the backfield, in sort of in that secondary. You probably list him as DB, but he's listed as a CB right now. So I like that. Jaleel Hurley, again, didn't see enough out of him from last year. I want to see more out of him. We got him from Alabama last year. Obviously, with the weight of the name Alabama behind you, going to Alabama out of high school, you know that he was going to be a really solid player. Transferred over. He came along with Emmanuel Henderson Jr. From Alabama, and I really like Jaleel Hurley's upside. And again, that's a guy you can kind of plug and play anywhere. Probably more so going to be a corner spot. But there's going to be some rotation, right? Especially if you have some guys running go routes down the sideline, having to guard guys for 25-plus yards. It would make sense for Jaleel Hurley to get some play this year. So I like his upside as well. I like the depth that we have. Also got 2 transfers who came in at the cornerback position. You have Roman Pearson come over from Ball State. I like his upside. And you also have Elijah Cannon coming over from Mississippi State. And Roman Pearson, to me, I really like his upside as well. He came over from Ball State, originally came over from Bucknell. If you look at what he did last year, 27 total tackles, 21 solo tackles, did have an interception for 7 yards, also had 2 interceptions in 2024 and 2 interceptions in 2023 as well. So I like his size that he has. He's 6'2", 192 pounds. That's a big corner. A guy who can get a hand in your chest. I like him up in press coverage as well. And we saw a little bit from him this past spring. I think he's going to be a nice plug-and-play guy. We're going to see a little bit of Roman Pearson this year. Again, your 2 consistent guys are going to be Austin Alexander and Jalen Todd. But there is going to be some rotation. You also have Elijah Cannon coming over from Michigan State. Didn't play a lot for Mississippi State. So he played in the SEC. Again, coming out of high school, a really nice player out of high school. Didn't play a lot for the Bulldogs last year. But again, I think he's a really high upside, and he's got a lot more years ahead of him, right? He's going to be a sophomore this year, I believe. Could potentially be a freshman this year because of the eligibility rule. I'm going to have to look into this in terms of football because there's so many guys and there's so many different ways that the eligibility rule applies to these guys. So I think he could potentially be a freshman this upcoming year. So that's the corners as of right now. You have really 6 guys who are in the running, and with the way that Kansas plays their defense, they have that nickel corner as well. They have some different guys who can bounce back and forth between safety and corner. So we'll certainly see, but I really like the fact that you're bringing back 2 consistent players from last year who were both of your starters from last year, right? That was what you thought whenever you thought you brought back Kobe Bryant and Melo Dotson. I'm not saying they're going to be those guys, but they have potential, and they're still really young, and they can still grow into themselves as players. Now for the safety spot, I like what Kansas did in the transfer portal. I'll talk about first kind of the 3 guys that you saw last year. So you have Taylor Davis coming back. to me, he's the leader of the secondary, right? Sort of that vocal leader, the guy who kind of worked his way up here at Kansas, stuck around at Kansas, and just kind of waited his turn. And, Taylor Davis, to me, is going to be that number one guy that the secondary kind of looks for a leader, for the guy who's going to correct you, right? That's what Taylor Davis's job is going to be in that secondary. I think he's got a really nice upside to him. I think he's going to be, like I said, just that number one guy that you're going to look at, especially in that safety room. But overall, in terms of the DBs, right? Even Jalen Todd and Austin Alexander are going to be looking at Taylor Davis just because he's going to be playing that safety position. He's going to be playing a little bit farther back. Mason Ellis, for the love of God, I need him to stay healthy because he is going to be such a nice player. Came from Mulvane High School, Kansas kid, and what we saw from him last year, in the little amount that we did, he was really, really good. I like Mason Ellis a lot. He spent a lot of the time in the spring in a yellow jersey this year, so hopefully he's using this summer to kind of get back healthy and get back to where he wants to be. And again, with the way that Kansas plays in the secondary, you're going to have like five guys back there sometimes. So I can see Mason Ellis kind of being that guy, and he can kind of plug in to be like an extra linebacker sometimes too because he's got some good size to him. You also have Brandon Schmelzley. I don't know what to expect out of him, but I know he's a really good athlete. Was here last year, played some special teams. And, we talked to him a little bit in terms of, media availabilities over the spring. I think Brandon Schmelzley has an opportunity to make his name known this year for Kansas. Now, I'll talk about the transfers who are coming in. So Kansas actually got 4 transfers coming in at the safety spot. Corey Gordon comes over from Louisville and Baylor. Started at Baylor, transferred to Louisville, a really, really good player, right? I mean, this kid has all of the ability in the world to be a lockdown safety. And to me, I think that's maybe the guy that I'm most excited about in terms of the transfers. I think that he had a couple of interceptions for Baylor. I think he had 1 interception for Louisville last year. And again, this is a guy who's going to be coming in and potentially stepping into a leadership role right away, right? You have Taylor Davis too, but Corey Gordon, to me, is going to be a really nice piece. You also have Jaden Harris, who comes over from Georgia, played at Miami 2 years ago and played a lot for Miami, transferred to Georgia, didn't play a lot at Georgia, probably less than he wanted to. But this is a guy who has spent time in high-level football programs who knows how to win, right? He has all the talent in the world. I think he's going to be a very key piece for this Kansas team coming up this next year. And again, he has a lot of experience at high-level football teams that he can provide to some of the younger guys and maybe some advice or anything like that anybody needs. You also have Christian Pritchett coming over from Georgia Tech. I'm really excited about him. Again, there's going to be some rotation in the safety room. I expect to see Christian Pritchett on the field quite a bit. Again, there's only a certain amount of, snaps to be split. But Christian Pritchett, I think he's going to be a really nice player. You also have Keyshawn Cummings-Coleman, who, if you look at Phil Steele actually has Keyshawn Cummings-Coleman playing in that nickel corner spot. I do like that. He played a good amount for Iowa State last year, transferred over from Iowa State. Sound fundamentally in terms of defensive backs, and he's one of those guys you can kind of plug and play him anywhere. More naturally a safety, right? But if you want to plug him into that nickel corner spot, sort of that slot corner spot, or if you need him to kind of branch out, play the outside, or whatever that may be, I think Keyshawn Cummings-Coleman is going to be a nice player for this Kansas squad. So that's the defensive backs, just kind of a breakdown in terms of what Kansas has on their roster. Hey, appreciate you guys sticking with us. Again, shortened show for today, so that's going to go ahead and do it here for Rock Chalk Sports on Kansas Nation. For Elijah Schmidt, our technical director running the operations behind the cameras, I've been Daniel Courtwright. I will see you guys out at FanFest. If you see me out there, don't be shy to say hi. For Elijah Schmidt, Daniel Courtwright here for Rock Chalk Sports, KansasNation.com, and ESPN Kansas City.